Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United States is proposing a UN Security Council draft resolution calling for a, quote, temporary ceasefire in Gaza as soon as practicable, unquote. The draft measure also calls for the release of all hostages and an end to restrictions on the delivery of humanitarian aid. It's the first time the U.S. has used the word ceasefire at the Security Council after vetoing previous efforts by other member states to stop the bloodshed. This comes as the UN Security Council is voting today on a resolution by Algeria calling for an immediate ceasefire. The U.S. has already vowed to veto it. It's not clear when the U.S. proposal will be put to a vote. The death toll in Gaza since October 7th is nearing 30,000, not counting thousands more who are missing, presumed dead and buried beneath the rubble. Amidst worsening hunger, UNICEF is warning the war-torn territory is, quote, poised to witness an explosion in preventable child deaths, which would compound the already unbearable level of child deaths, unquote. Israeli forces again opened fire at crowds waiting for humanitarian aid, killing at least one person and wounding many others. This is a displaced Palestinian seeking food aid in Gaza City.
Because we want to eat, we are dying of hunger. Why would someone put themselves at risk of dying by coming here? It is in order to feed the children. We are dying of hunger and there is no food or drink left in Gaza. There is a famine.
The UN Human Rights Agency says it's received reports of rights violations against Palestinian women and girls in Gaza and the occupied West Bank since October 7th. Israeli forces are accused of arbitrary executions, sexual assault, separating families, and many other forms of inhumane treatment. Degrading photos of Palestinian women were also reportedly taken by Israeli soldiers and shared online. UN experts are calling for an independent investigation into the abuses. In The Hague, arguments are continuing at the International Court of Justice, where Palestinians and more than 50 countries and organizations are testifying against Israel's occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. It's the largest ever participation in the World Court's history. Earlier today, the South African ambassador, Vusi Madonsela, said the situation in Palestine is a, quote, more extreme form of the apartheid that was institutionalized against black people in my country, he said. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malki said that, quote, the genocide underway in Gaza is a result of decades of impunity and inaction. Riyad Mansour, Palestinian envoy to the UN, delivered an emotional testimony Monday.
The State of Palestine appeals to this court to guide the international community in upholding international law, ending injustice, and achieving a just and lasting peace, to guide us towards a future in which Palestinian children are treated as children. Not as demographic threat, in which the identity of the group to which we belong does not diminish the human rights to which we are all entitled, a future in which no Palestinian and no Israelis is killed.
We'll have more on the historic World Court hearings later in the program when we go to The Hague. Israel's Knesset narrowly voted Monday against expelling lawmaker Ofer Kassif, a member of the Hadash party, who supported South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. The move to expel him fell short by just 5 votes. To see our interviews with Knesset member Ofer Kassif, go to democracynow.org. Meanwhile, Brazil has recalled its ambassador to Israel. Brazil said it won't retract President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's comment calling Israel's war on Gaza a genocide and comparing the attacks to the Nazi Holocaust, remarks that led Israel to declare Lula persona non grata in Israel. Brazil's foreign ministry has also summoned the Israeli ambassador for talks. In London, a critical appeal for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is underway at the British High Court of Justice in what could be Assange's last chance to stop his extradition to the United States. Assange has been held in London's Belmarsh prison since 2019. He was charged under the U.S. Espionage Act and faces a 175-year prison sentence for publishing classified documents exposing U.S. war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Julian Assange's wife, Stella, has called the situation a matter of life and death. Before heading into court, Stella Assange addressed her husband's supporters gathered outside for the two-day hearing.
There is no possibility of a fair trial if Julian is extradited to the United States. He should never be extradited to the United States. He would never be safe. The United States plotted to murder my husband. He is being accused of journalism. This case is an admission by the United States that they now criminalize investigative journalism. It's an attack on all journalists all over the world. It's an attack on the truth, and it's an attack on the public's right to know. Julian is a political prisoner, and his life is at risk. What happened to Navalny can happen to Julian. He has to be released. This farce has to end.
In a controversial ruling in Haiti, a judge investigating the 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moise has indicted the former First Lady Martine Moise and ex-Haitian Prime Minister Claude Joseph, accusing them of involvement in the killing. Court documents accuse Martine Moise, who was shot and seriously injured in the 2021 attack that killed her husband, of conspiring with Joseph to kill her husband and suggest she was even plotting to assume the presidency herself. The former chief of Haiti's National Police is also among some 50 people recently charged. Martine Moise and Claude Joseph have denounced U.S.-backed acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry for weaponizing Haiti's justice system to persecute his opponents. Henry has himself been implicated in the assassination plot, including by a former judge who previously oversaw the investigation. Political turmoil and bloody gang violence has gripped Haiti amidst mounting protests to remove Ariel Henry from power. Indian farmers are continuing their protest march towards the capital, New Delhi, after rejecting a proposal from the government for a 5-year contract guaranteeing higher crop prices. Thousands of farmers have been camping out about 120 miles outside of New Delhi as authorities have deployed tear gas and erected barricades to prevent access to the city. On Monday, Mahinder Singh, a 100-year-old farmer from Punjab, joined the march.
My family stops me from protesting, but our expenses are not covered. I have 2 children, daughters. I have a family. What choice do I have? Our lands are gone. Our rights are gone. They, the government, do not give us the rights even when we demand them.
In Wisconsin, Democratic Governor Tony Evers signed into law new congressional maps reversing the extreme Republican gerrymandering enacted under Governor Scott Walker in 2011. The move could give Democrats an edge in the swing state as the whole Wisconsin Assembly and half the state Senate are up for re-election in November. Wisconsin Republicans agreed to the new maps rather than challenge them at the state's liberal Supreme Court, which they worried could result in new district lines more favorable to Democrats. This is Governor Evers at Monday's signing ceremony.
Wisconsin is not a red state. It is not a blue state. Wisconsin is a purple state, and I believe our map should reflect that basic fact. I believe, as I've also often said, that the people should get to choose their elected officials, not the other way around.
In business news, Capital One announced it's acquiring Discover Financial Services for $35 billion, merging 2 of the country's largest credit card companies. The deal will have to pass regulatory approval as the Biden administration is seeking to tighten rules on financial mergers. Meanwhile, Colorado is suing to block grocery chain Kroger's $25 billion merger with Albertsons. The merger would create the largest supermarket chain in the United States with some 5,000 stores, giving it near monopoly control to set prices and underpay its workers. In Washington state, Japanese Americans are joining immigrant rights activists demanding the closure of an immigration detention center in Tacoma run by the private group Geo Group. The Northwest Detention Center has been the site of several hunger strikes over the years due to inhumane conditions. State inspectors were recently denied entry to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement jail. On Friday, the groups blocked Seattle's federal building as part of their action.
I am here for my great-grandmother, Yoshie Iwamura, who had to give birth to my grandmother, Karen Iwamura, in camp at Minidoka. I say free them all and stop repeating history.
The group Suru for Solidarity and La Resistencia also mark the annual Day of Remembrance when Japanese Americans were declared enemies of the state in 1942 and incarcerated. And in Colorado, a former internment camp has reopened its doors as the nation's newest national park. Over 10,000 people of Japanese descent were imprisoned at Camp Amache between 1942 and 1945. National Park Service Director Chuck Sams, the first Native American to hold the position, said, quote, "Amache's addition to the national park system is a reminder that a complete account of the nation's history must include our dark chapters of injustice." And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Juan, it's an honor to celebrate the 28th anniversary of Democracy Now! With you, with the whole team and our listeners, viewers, readers, and stations. To mark the occasion, we've just surpassed 2 million viewers on YouTube.
Yes, Amy, and who would have thought back in 1996 that this newscast, which was originally supposed to be just a one-year program covering the 1996 presidential election for a handful of Pacifica community radio stations, would still be on the air nearly 3 decades later with a worldwide audience that has grown steadily since then. I guess we must be doing something right. It's been an honor as well for me to work with you and the amazing staff of Democracy Now! Over all this time.
Well, it's been an epic journey, Juan, and I'm so glad to be on it with you.